So, welcome, Andy Sellick. I'm very excited because we've not done one of these in a while. So, I think let's just start off by having you introduce yourself. Obviously, I've said your name, but who are you and what do you do?
So hi there. Firstly, Matt, thanks for having me. It's great to be here today. Shame we couldn't do it in person as well, but I'm sure next time we will definitely get together and dive into the depths of some more questions. But for today, so I'm Andy Sellick. I'm the CTO of OVO Solar and Heating. I've been with the OVO Energy Group now for around about 4 years. So the first 2 years were spent as CTO of a company called Kantan, actually in a not too dissimilar space to kind of Payaka as a grand scheme of things, but I'll be honest, nowhere near as good as the product that you're offering today. And the second 2 years have really been spent. First year was spent on a green loyalty program called Beyond, which was really kind of focused on trying to drive engagement with OVO, but transitioning our customers on that green journey. And the second year has been focused solely on OVO Solar and Heating, which has been fantastic, been a real joy to be a part of. Prior to that, I was actually at a company called Love Holidays. It's probably the biggest brand that you've never heard of. It's a company that actually was a fantastic journey. So we took that from when I joined, which was probably about eight engineers, a really kind of small customer base, a company that was worth about 30 million, to first exit in May of 2018 of 180 million, I believe it was at the time. And then pre-pandemic, we actually hit £1 billion valuation. So I think it was January of 2020, we're about £1 billion in value. So that was an incredible journey. And the team there have taken that even further. They've done an incredible job. And I think they're number 3 in the Atoll League table as well. So that was a heck of a journey going from startup to scale up in quite some fashion.
Pretty big success. So, I'm imagining that as you sort of moved into OVO and you've gone into all these different roles, that you've been able to apply that knowledge of very small to very big and how that all fits together.
Absolutely. And I think it's obviously very interesting being in a corporate world, but I think the one thing that you can never lose is that startup mindset, because I think that sees you through a lot of the challenges. And I think the speed you can drive, the entrepreneurial spirit that you can kind of foster is key to success in any size organization. So I think that's something we still try to maintain pretty heavily within OVO.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, full transparency, we've been working together since the start of the year. And I think the reason we've been able to achieve what we have, together, and a lot of it, in terms of the successes you've had so far, is because you're still applying that small company sort of approach within a larger organization and sort of interacting with other smaller companies like us. And I think it's a real challenge to get that to work. Going into it, it was the first sort of relationship that we had. And we didn't know it was going to work, but I think it's worked better because of, I think, how you've approached it internally.
Yeah, completely. And I think coming from that startup background, that helps a lot, because you kind of really understand the pitfalls, the challenges that you face as a startup. And I think because of that, we're able to operate in a way that is conducive to a really strong relationship from both sides, and both sides see the benefits of that. And I think, it's not just us that are facilitating that, you guys are as well. And I think it's, we use the word partnership, but I'd happily use the word relationship. It's a really, fundamentally positive relationship between both parties. And I think both parties are also seeing the benefits of that as well, which is great.
I mean, within the wider OVO group, like how sort of unusual is this approach? I mean, you mentioned Kantan. I guess that was a kind of a similar kind of setup, but there are other. Is this something that is more widespread within the group, or maybe
I think it's certainly something we're trying to cross-pollinate more within the organisation, because I think it was an organisation that historically had become quite siloed in terms of technology capability and working, and deep specialisms, which meant pieces of work got handed from team to team. But more so over the last couple of years, you've really seen that transition to single-threaded leadership, really cross-functional teams that are able to deliver not just from a technical standpoint, but you've got commercial teams within that. You've got the product teams are all within that. So literally everything you need is situated in a cross-functional manner to kind of deliver end-to-end to really make a difference for our customers. And that's ultimately what we've been striving for over the last, God knows how many years, but specifically in the last 2 years has really been focused heavily on kind of that customer support and customer experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great to see. I mean, OVO's been on quite a journey itself since 2009, I think, started up, and it's gone from, yeah, tiny startup to obviously huge national, international company with all sorts of exciting things going on. But yeah, let's talk a bit more about OVO Solar and Heat. So you sort of mentioned that's what you're CTO of, uh, but what is OVO Solar and Heat, and what's it looking to do?
So OVO Solar and Heating is actually a pretty new corporate venture within inside OVO. So specifically carved out at the start of 2025. So solar and heat is not new to the business as a whole. I think for 2 or 3 years prior to that, it was something that OVO was really keen to kind of push and to grow. But for a variety of reasons, having, your own in-house install teams and really trying to build the proposition around having your own staff to support it, it just doesn't scale well and it's not very cost effective. And it really becomes a bit of a negative impact from a customer standpoint because you're not really kind of, hand holding the customer, really looking after them. You're not going to be there on site, a week before the install. You're not there to kind of follow up as easily. So what we kind of pivoted from was this kind of more national model to looking at a franchise model where we could really take and pick the best installers throughout the UK. They come under the OVO umbrella. These are the best of the best regionally. They can offer fantastic customer experience. They are local to the customer. So if there's a problem, if there's a conversation that needs to be had, whatever the reason might be, these teams can come out and see you. And we really wanted to blend, I guess, that national brand, that brand you can trust in OVO, but we then wanted to also bring in that customer service and experience that only local teams can really deliver. And I think we've managed that really effectively. And I think there's other aspects that come into play here. We, as part of the transition to this franchise model, we also wanted to try and keep the kind of the technical cost base and overheads as low as possible. It's very easy if you're building out a new proposition to have 4 or 5 squads and multiple £1 million of kind of technical costs associated to that, and that's before you even start thinking about partners as well. And we wanted to try and keep it really small, really niche, keep that startup mentality and vibe within the team as well. But focus squarely on the things that we thought were going to add the most value from an intellectual property perspective for OVO specifically. And that was really around the customer experience that we could deliver, but then use the best partners within the market to provide the underpinning technology that enabled that to really happen. So I think we've got that blend so far, really working nicely for us. So we've got, those low technical costs and overheads. We've got regional installers offering a great, fantastic customer experience. And we're all working together to kind of deliver that end to end. And so far, it's worked nicely, scaling well, and the trajectory is looking exciting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had the fortune of being able to go to your sort of meetups and meet some of these the new franchisees in person. I'd agree they really do stand out as the best. One thing that's interesting is how did you go about finding them, and how did you go about convincing them to sort of join forces with you?
I think we are fairly fortunate in the sense that we do have, really good contacts with the industry. That does obviously open a few doors for us. But in all honesty, we have a strong operations team who've been in the market and have been in the industry for quite some time. They are aware of a lot of the providers in the market, and they were able to kind of start to build together a bit of a short list of companies that we'd like to engage. And then it's obviously just a conversation to start off with, explaining to them what the model looks like, how that would work, what that would mean for both sides, and starting to work through the questions and answers, the potential pain points, and then starting to kind of grow and form that relationship to a point of trust where both sides see there's, it's mutually beneficial and we can start to expand it. And our head of ops is pretty fantastic at really engaging and understanding the kind of the needs of the franchises or the potential franchises at that point, and helping them understand, where this relationship can go for them and for us. And I think that's why we've seen such a really positive uptake in the franchise model. And it really has been positive. We are up to 12 franchises to date, probably likely to hit 15 to 17 by the end of the year, and hopefully 25 next year at some point, which is giving us really, really strong coverage of the British Isles.
And is there anything that you sort of didn't expect to be a challenge as you sort of rolled out this model that sort of come up that you sort of had to overcome? Yeah, this is a different approach, isn't it? So,
I think the challenges that we probably foresaw, or maybe flip that actually. It's not really the challenges that I didn't see coming. It's the challenges that we thought would happen and maybe aren't as prevalent maybe as we thought they would be. So obviously working with a lot of different companies, you're working in a lot of different ways of working and processes, and you're trying to draw a line as much down the middle of that as possible to try and give as many people enough of what they want, but without fragmenting your processes and your data flows, for example. And I think that to date has been a lot better than I expected. And a lot of credit has to go to the franchises for really working with us to kind of make that happen. I think there are areas maybe where you become a slight victim of your own success. So we've probably grown quicker than we could probably have imagined it to some extent at this stage. And that is really kind of pushing us harder towards we need to have a single source of truth for data. So making sure that we haven't got fragmented data sets across multiple systems and really having that single source of truth for our customer live within Payaka. And that's really kind of expediting that part of the journey so far. So I think it has been an eclectic mix. I think there's been some pleasant surprises as we've gone, but there have certainly been some growing pains as well. And the kind of the data spread and fragmentation has been part of that.
yeah, sounds good. I mean, there's been a lot of we can see a lot of things that from experiences with bigger businesses on best approaches to selling and operations and sort of all the way through that I think you're able to give to the franchisees and is a great opportunity for them. Hopefully you don't mind giving a few tips to the much smaller competitors that you have, which some of our other customers who are may look a little bit like the franchisee companies. But do you have any top tips in terms of those sort of processes and sales journeys that you'd be happy to share?
Yeah, I think, I think the first thing to call out is there is no silver bullet. There's no one thing you can do that is going to magically swing that needle in your favor and you're going to see exponential growth. It really is a journey of small gains, lots of compounding changes that will have a material impact over time. I think what we see is certainly those companies that really kind of have that high engagement with their customers, that really are trying to kind of reach out, have that close contact with them, hold their hands, are certainly doing better. And that's something that we wanted to really emulate. And as a bigger company, it's harder to do that sometimes. So smaller companies, I think, are a lot more nimble and agile to do that. I think really having strong comms flows throughout the process, throughout the pipeline as well, and making sure that's as automated and standardized to some extent as possible, but still with that friendly feel to it. So making sure that you kind of are referring to customers by their first names, that you're really kind of trying to give them, information about the people that are going to be coming out to install the job, et cetera, and really kind of making them feel like you care about them as a customer at each touch point. I think that's also really relevant. My experience of looking for solar packages prior to joining OVO Solar and Heating was one where, sure, you had people kind of contact you pretty quickly, but it was very obvious, it's just not hard selling, but, not far off it in actuality. People phoning you up, what are you looking for? When are you going to, and it's really kind of quite pushy. And I think it's striking that balance between kind of having that level of, conversation with the customer, but not over pushing it, not overselling it. And I think, giving the customer, advice and thoughts on kind of, what they could do and maybe some of the pitfalls, and educating them within that process. And I think the education is a key part, because the number of customers that we speak to that know they want this thing called solar, or they know that they want this thing called heat pump, but then don't really understand all the bells and whistles and benefits of doing so. And I think as a whole, for the smaller players in the market as well, the market is shifting to some extent. And I think energy companies are offering, really great tariffs around these products. And I think you can't just focus on just purely the sale of solar panels and the installation of solar panels anymore. You need to be thinking bigger than that about, okay, not only will we sell you the solar panels, but we will help you get onto the best tariffs. These are the best tariffs in the market. This is what they look like. The battery that I'm going to provide you is going to get you onto OVO's battery boosts product, for example. You can use OVO seg rates, and really trying to offer customers a lot more than just the installation. And also, that post installation support as well. So, how long is it going to be until those solar panels need to be checked to make sure that they're not being covered in bird mess or trees now, obfuscating the view? How can we make sure that customers have that kind of feeling that they got that support and trust in that company that they will continue to support them post installation as well? And I think those are parts that have been quite missing, not in just in the solar world, but just in terms of the trades as a whole. You tend to find that customers feel like they get the job installed and then nothing. Those people sort of disappear in general. And I think having, being able to offer those customers as extra touch points in terms of like future support, but also like this is what you need to do after you've had the install to get the best rates in the market. Those are all things that are going to help you win. And I think, like I said, it's the solar installation piece is becoming bigger than just the installation. You need to think of it as a bigger product that you can really offer from now on.
Yeah, completely agree on that one. That's something that we've always pushed is, if you are installing whatever it is, if there's an opportunity to maintain that relationship with the customer, selling them a service or maintenance plan, or obviously through OVO, you've got the tariffs and things like that, then you really do want to cement that relationship with the customer so that, whenever they have anything else that comes up in future, you're the one they think of because you've got that relationship.
Lately. And I think there's other things that we're looking at, for example, like looking at the output of the solar panels over time and seeing whether that output reduces to a level where clearly there needs to be an investigation. Perhaps it is a tree that's grown extremely large, or perhaps there is a set of naughty birds in the area that are causing mayhem, whatever it may be. But just being able to kind of get in contact with the customer and say, look, we've seen your outputs, decreased. We're going to come out and have a look at that for you. And really, delight our customers in the fact that it isn't just a case of one and done. We are there to support them throughout their journey.
Mm. I mean, you mentioned the comms being quite important and that being sort of quite personalized, but I think one of the challenges must be like the balance of automated and actual, personalized outreach. Like, how do you manage that balance? How do you advise people on that?
Well, I think part of the good thing about the franchise network is there's a lot of existing knowledge, and we talk about the kind of the franchises learning from us. Well, just as much as we can teach them, about sort of marketing at scale, etc., etc. There's a lot we learn from our franchise as well, and they are really fantastic at understanding how to engage customers and strike that balance. And a lot of the work they do is really kind of around that sort of outreach, around that kind of, like I said, that hand holding, that really kind of talking to the customers and getting to know the customers and the customers knowing who they're talking to the end of the phone. So I think the balance is struck where, we really are managing from an, central OVO perspective. We are managing the kind of service level comms that go out, and we call them service level comms, but we still make them feel like they are specifically from that franchise. They're all signed off by the person that's the kind of managing that account at that franchise. And we try to make it feel like it's a lot more, a lot more of a local business than a big national corporate. But like I said, the franchises are then complementing that really well with kind of those touch points. And I think, to be fair, they will be sending comms directly to the customers via email, via SMS, but they do also kind of pick up the phone, which I think is, the number one thing to be doing, and talk to the customers, talk them through what they're doing, and the site visits as well. And, that you can't really place a value on a site visit, having that comfort that you have got a bond with this person, you sort of resonate with them, and you do feel like what they're telling you is, the truth, and that you trust that they can actually deliver. And I think all of those aspects, create the right balance in terms of the customer communication blend, really.
Yeah. And final point on the give away all your tips and tricks to your competitors. One thing that's, I think, is super impressive, that we're very driven by, but I've been, you've got even more resources your end, is how data driven you are, and actually building out dashboards with metrics and sort of really closely monitoring performance across the board. Is there anything that you can sort of share on what are those key metrics you should be looking at, and how important it is to have that sort of level of monitoring? And also, I think one of the harder things is deciding which are the important metrics to look at and how you keep it balanced, and actually so that the result of monitoring those metrics is the outcome you want.
I agree. And I think it's very easy as well to focus on kind of one metric to rule them all. And actually, you can't really look at it in that vein. So we kind of look at the lead generational aspect of it to start off with. That's kind of our first metric through the flow. So what's our conversion rate for leads through the funnel? But you can't look at that in isolation, because as much as that's a great metric, we're getting all these leads through the system. If you're getting a lot of people through who are really just want a kind of bit more information, but they're not really about to pull the trigger on solar, then you're getting a lot of people through the mix that's costing you a lot of time in terms of calling them up, but not necessarily giving you the value. So there's a real balance between kind of that lead conversion rate KPI through to how many of those leads actually then go onto a proposal, the proposal stage. How many of those proposals turn into proposal acceptance? How many of those acceptances turn into deposit? How many of those deposits turn into an installation? And then overriding all of that is what's the customer experience and satisfaction like as well. So they all play into each other, and they all have to balance each other out. You can move the dial on one and have an effect on another, and that effect isn't necessarily going to be the effect that you would like. So we could pull the lever on getting more leads into the system, which is amazing. But if we're just overwhelming our franchises with too many leads, but those leads are not of a quality that we'd like, then we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're just spending more time servicing lower quality leads. Whereas actually what we want to do is strike the balance between good volumes, but good quality. So then, the franchises can really work those leads to a point of getting them through the mix, getting the proposals, getting them accepted, and ultimately getting the sale.
Yeah. Awesome.
I would say, on top of that, KPIs are fantastic, but there is nothing better than you can do at any one point in time than actually talking to your customers. And not just those customers you win. I'd say the customers that you really want to be talking to are those customers that you didn't win, and really trying to find out from those customers what was the thing that tipped the balance against you. There's a famous diagram, I don't know whether you've seen it, about the bombers that came back in the Second World War. Don't know whether
Yeah.
And it shows kind of where the bullet holes. So they were coming back, and they were looking at the bullet holes in the bombers that came back, and they started to add extra kind of metal, extra support to the plane to make sure that if those areas got hit again, they wouldn't be damaged, or they wouldn't crash. Until somebody pointed out, it's not the planes that come back that you need to be concerned about. So yeah, sure, look at all the bullet holes, those planes that come back. It's the planes that don't come back that you want to worry about. They're the ones that you really want to kind of start to think about. And that's the mentality you need to think when you kind of often when you think about customers. It's not just those customers that you win you want to think about, but more so it's the customers that you lose that you really want to think more so about. They're the ones that can help make your airplane a lot more secure and sturdy for the future.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting on that for sure. Cool. So moving on to I guess it's going back to like when you really were kicking off OVO Solar and Heat. You were sort of thinking about partners to work with, or perhaps you're even thinking about doing everything yourselves. Like, how did you split out the things that you felt you need to work with partners on, and then how did you go about finding them?
I think, ironically, some of this comes down to the fact that we a number of us had started a business called Kansan, which was owned by OVO at the time, and it was a field service tool for gas engineers. So we weren't obviously directly competing with each other at the time, but we really understood, I think, the complexities of that space and quite what is involved in terms of investment, in terms of the number of people, in terms of the thought process that need to make that product successful. And from the outset, what was really clear to me was that was not an area that we wanted to invest our money in, because you'd never win in that competition. It's, there are dedicated companies like yourselves who are going to own that market and win in that market. So what we want to do is use those tools to help make us successful. So I think quite early on, what I wanted to do is really own that customer experience through the flow, make sure that every single customer touch point was really strong, really delightful, that we can kind of optimize those as best as we could, but then have the underpinning technology, be it telephony, be it CRM/sales pipelines, it's quality management tools like safety culture, for example, and have them as the underpinning tools to support us in that journey. And I think in doing so, not only have we obviously lowered our overall technical costs as a business, because like I said, technical teams cost multiple millions to run, but also the more that you scale your business in terms of technical footprint, ironically, it's not the faster you go. It becomes it becomes kind of an anti-pattern to some extent. Your lines of communication become longer and harder. You can't operate as quickly. So by having a smaller team focus on just one specific area around that customer experience, we're able to move a lot quicker. And then, you guys work extremely quickly around Payaka. And then, the other providers that we utilize are kind of, able to move quickly and support us as well. So it means, ironically, we get the best of every single world because every team is working on our own products. We're paying you guys for this product, but working with you on this product. But then we're able to move quickly on our own as well. And I think that's where we kind of drew the boundaries was, like I said, what is core to us? Well, it really is around that customer experience. Everything else is going to help support that customer experience and take us from, where we are to where we need to be. But we couldn't facilitate that ourselves. And we need to kind of recognize that. And especially we just couldn't fund the cost of doing so. So.
An obvious one for me, but it'd be silly for me not to ask you about your experience so far using Payaka and what's really worked.
Well, hopefully by me agreeing to be in this call, you realise that it's obviously been really positive today. No, I think from our side and the franchise, it's been extremely positive. I think everybody has had some really, strong positive feedback about the tool itself and effectively how it's. Let's just say there's a lot of big CRM tools out there in the market that are nowhere near as efficient, don't improve your operational efficiency anywhere near as Payaka does. And I think that was one of the elements that we were looking for when we went out to the market was, yes, there are some really big players out in the market, but those tools often require a heck of a lot of investment up front, really big teams to kind of build out everything you want to kind of integrate with it. Whereas Payaka came out the box with a really strong base level package. And then we've worked with you and you guys have flown producing an extraordinary amount of APIs for us to kind of continue to deepen that integration, to deepen that relationship, which enables us to kind of build that over time. But like I said, that base package was just incredibly strong. And there was nobody that we could see in the market that offered a tenth of what you did within the new renewable space. So I think that's kind of, a lot of pretty positive feedback. Like I said, we've been super happy, super stoked. And I'd say on top of that, Matt, you and your team have been just a joy to work with. It's been just fantastic having, calls with you guys, really honest conversations about, okay, we could do things this ways, but and you guys all also calling out to us and saying, actually, a better approach would be to do it this way. That's exactly the kind of the relationship that I want, exactly the conversations. Let's not, mess around going down a path that might not work. Let's talk to each other, let's pull on each other's expertise and let's drive down the right path first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of echoed this side. Likewise, the whole team have really enjoyed the experience. I think the added benefit to anyone listening who is either working with us already or thinking about working with us is I think you really are pushing us. Not that everyone isn't pushing us anyway, and we aren't very driven to move faster, but you're going, right, how do we support the next level of scale? And I think that for pretty much all of the companies we work with, they're ambitious. They want that edge. And whilst, I think that obviously you have this ability to sort of shape our roadmap with some respects, like 99.9% of the stuff that we're discussing, we're focusing on, and you're pushing us to do, it benefits everyone. So from our point of view as well, I think it's a great relationship, and I think just seeing how much we've got done on the product to the benefit of all over the last, 8 months we've been working together, has been great.
It has been incredible, and I think, look, from my side, I think it's very rare that I get excited, this excited, maybe too excited about a product that I don't actually build myself. And I think, and the reason I'm so excited about it is I can see where it's come from and where it is today, but I can also see where it's going. And I think there's a really strong vision and direction for it. And I think whereas a lot of startups that you get out there, there's a real desire to kind of get stuff out to market so super quickly, but then you get to this stage where making any sort of changes then become more and more and more painful. You get a lot more bugs that are released. But you guys really put the forethought into what you are delivering to make sure that you're delivering something with the future in mind. So it's a continual evolution of that product. And being brutally honest, I can't really even think of more than 1 or 2 bugs that we've seen within the system at all, full stop, within the 8 months that we've been working together. I think we've produced more bugs, more bugs than you have in that timescale. And so, that is really testament to a team that is moving that quickly, that is delivering such quality products, is incredibly hard to do. And, that's been super impressive. But like I said, I can see where this product is going to be in the next year, 2 years, and it is going to be game changing for the market.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know the CTO Matt Bessie would agree with me, but we're very clear that if you're producing no bugs, you are not moving fast enough. Obviously, there has to be as absolute limited as possible, so it has no impact on your customers. But if they're happy to be on the journey of pushing harder, and as long as you fix the problem very, very quickly, I think
exactly. It's more about time to identification and time to resolution that you really need to worry about. But yeah, completely.
Yeah, and not making the same mistake twice is the one biggest one. So yeah, the sort of final point on this, I don't know how much we can really talk about, but like, what are you really excited about in the future? Either collaborating with us or about what OVO, Solar and Heat are kind of doing and what's next?
Well, I think, from our point of view, I think I'm really super excited about just deepening that integration to a point where we have complete synergies. Maybe it's with OVO tariffs that are being pushed into Packer, so we can kind of start to offer those out to our customers. Maybe it's obviously things like safety culture. So when we are doing reviews of installations on site, obviously for our ops teams, for our centralized ops teams, all that data is flowing through into Packer, and that the franchises can really see what's going on and what their reports and feedback was along the way. Also things like telephony, making sure that's completely integrated. So we've got call recordings, transcripts, we've got the AI level transcripts, or summarized transcripts, maybe we've got sentiment analysis that's kind of all feeding back into each project. WhatsApp integration, so we can kind of really have those more personal conversations with customers and make those kind of really seamless and fully automated again. So, this is really where it's going to. And like I said, it's about creating that big package. And I think, Packer are really the biggest enabler for us to be able to do that. And I think that's kind of super exciting over the next few years. I think the innovation that we see around OVO, around things like propositions that we offer our customers is second to none within the market. If I look at a lot of the tariffs that we offer our customers in terms of, things like Heat Pump Plus, for example, we offer things like battery boosts as well. So, we're looking at how we can support our customers and make it more cost effective for our customers. Battery boosts is a product, for example, which we offer whereby if you have a battery and it's a certain type of battery that's been installed, not just by OVO, but by anybody, but it's a battery that we support, then in the winter months when your solar panels are going to be producing naturally less electricity, we can charge up your battery for cheaper at different times of the day, and you can pull down on that in peak times. So it's like we're constantly looking to innovate and work out how we can support our customers in the best possible way. How can we give them more, than we do today, and how can we take them on that green journey? Then, as I mentioned earlier, we've got Beyond, which is our green loyalty program. Again, some of the propositions coming out, market leading stuff. We're seeing some of the other energy suppliers copying us in the market. We offer 2 free hours of energy, of electricity every week to Beyond customers. We offer, customers that don't have a solar panel installation, or don't have a heat pump, or don't have an EV yet. We offer them reward schemes. So, for example, if you haven't got an EV, you can start to bank free miles up until the point at which you get an EV, and then when you connect it up to the grid with us, we'll then give you all your free miles that you've collated to that point. We do the same with heat pump months. So if you haven't got a heat pump yet, we'll give you free heat pump months up until, I think it's up to about 2-year mark. And then once you then go and buy your heat pump through us, we'll then give you those heat months for free. Same with solar panels. We allow you to collect free solar panels, up to five free solar panels over 2 years. And then if you go and get solar panels for us, we'll give you those 5 free solar panels. And it's kind of things like that are, really thinking outside the box and really thinking about those customers that, hey, yes, I do want to go on a green journey, but you know what? Times are a little bit tough right now. I can't afford maybe to get myself solar panels, or I can't afford to get myself an EV, but give me the next 5 years, I probably will be looking to get those things. So how can we reward those customers and take them on that journey, even when they're not quite ready for it right now? And that's super exciting. And we're constantly looking to expand that area. So all I'll say is watch this space around beyond. It's like a mega area to, of interest, both from an industry perspective, but certainly if you're a customer, go and check it out. There's a lot to kind of, a lot of rewards to kind of reap there. I'd say the other thing, which is more generic for the industry as well, is obviously as we all push towards a greener future, there's a lot we can be doing as an industry to kind of take us there. And energy management systems are certainly going to be a big part of that in the future. So what do we mean by that? Well, it's about companies like OVO Energy being able to control some of your Wi-Fi or internet-enabled devices. So if we think about it this way, one of the things that we've already pushed out is something called Charge Anytime, which means that you can plug in your EV, as an example, and you just say, I want it to be charged by 7 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, whenever it might be. And then we will look at the grid and we'll look at when the grid is green, so to speak, or when it's under heavy use, and we'll avoid the heavy use times and we'll charge it up when the grid is greener. So we're balancing the load on the grid. And obviously the more you can balance the load on the grid, the less power stations you need to be able to power that grid in the first place. And obviously we're always as a country looking to use more and more energy. So the more we can balance the grid, the better, the more we can remove those, fossil fuel power stations, as an example. So that's just one example, and Charge Anytime is a great place, great offering that we've taken out and into the market. But the future doesn't stop at EVs. There are dishwashers, there's washing machines, and you can imagine that people just stick the washing in, they put their tablet in, and they just leave it ready for us to switch it on at any point in time. And maybe we let them know in advance. We say, look, we're going to turn your machine on this, roughly this time. This is when we can see the grid's going to be green. Therefore, just make sure you got you're ready to take your washing out, or, your dishwashers are going to turn on this time. The potential around this is going to be phenomenal. You can imagine that most people probably putting their washing machines on at a certain point in time of the day. They're putting their dishwashers on at a certain time of the day. If we can balance that load, then the country is going to be in a far better state. And it's just pure intelligence in the technology that enables that. There's no significant, huge investment from any one person. And naturally, over time, as people replace their dishwashers, as they replace their washing machines, they all are going to be more internet enabled over time. And that's going to open the market up incredibly so. And I think that's strongly where it's pushing now.
Yeah, that's absolutely massive. I think, like, from my point of view, just commenting on everything you've just said there, is I think one of the most impressive things is your and OVO's ability to work on all these like different things. It's not one team doing all these things that you've spoken about, but the way they all connect to each other, I think is just, I mean, I can't even imagine the challenge of trying to lead an organization that big and pull these different teams together and have them not just all going off in all different directions. And I think, yeah, it's really impressive to see that's all been thought about, and the fact that you in your role know about all these other things and how it all fits together. And yeah, from what I've seen, like, I think the rest of the teams are equally aligned, and so yeah, it'd be really exciting to see what OVO
Absolutely.
does over the next 1,
And
2, 5 years.
I won't lie. It is a genuinely fantastic place to work. It's a company that cares about their people, but also at the center of every conversation we have is our customer. A lot of companies use those lines, but I think they more use them versus believe in them. But genuinely for us, that is the case. We are, our KPIs center around the customer and improving what we do. And we don't always get everything perfect. Nobody does. But where we don't, to the point we made on the call earlier, we want to learn from those experiences and make our customers' lives better. We want to be the best energy company and beyond in the market. And we want to deliver the best experience in the market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise from Pekka's side, there's so much that needs to be done, and so much we can do, and we can do that together. Final question is, as the industry as a whole, what needs to change to really help, beyond what an individual company can do, help us hit the sort of very ambitious targets in terms of solar capacity, like heat pumps installed, EV charger installs? Like, what needs to change?
I think there's a multitude of things, but I think the first thing is again, as a country, we just need to be a lot more innovative, and we're starting to see some of that innovation come through. So obviously you had Ed Miliband talking about the potential of solar panel car parks. So you could literally go in and every car parking space has got like a roof to it, to one of a better term, but on top of that roof is solar panels. Why the heck aren't we doing that already? That just feels like there's all this space that we've got available to us that we can just use now to generate, electricity. And it's not going to be in some field behind your house, which inevitably, half a village are going to complain about, because quite rightly, who wants a massive solar panel farm stuck behind the house? So I think really for me, the biggest thing that we can do as a country is really innovate. And you kind of look at some of the innovations and you kind of say, things like, solar panels in car parks, you go, that's really fantastic. But there's a lot more we could and should be doing as a country to kind of make that difference. Bear in mind that up until recently, now I can't remember exactly the regulations, but we haven't even been forcing heat pump installs and solar installs on new build properties. I mean, I think the majority of the rest of continental Europe has been doing that for quite some time. Why is that not just a de facto standard? It's beggars belief that hasn't happened today. And it's, the simple reason is because nobody's been making it enough of a priority. We talk about green, but do we genuinely want to be green, or, is that the can that we kick down the road for the next government and the next government and the next government? I don't want to obviously get into politics, but I think, we need to innovate now and make decisions now to obviously, see that greener tomorrow, because otherwise it's just going to get further and further away from us, not closer and closer to us.
Yeah, I mean the politics one is definitely maybe one for another time. But I think at a high level, it's very difficult because with the short terms that the governments have, the incentives for what we need to create for the greener future are much longer. So it is a challenge, that for sure. I have to shout out, seeing as you mentioned the solar panels in car parks. One of our commercial solar customers, Sol PV, have recently been putting some stuff on LinkedIn about their installations in co-op car parks. So they have been doing this. So that's another example of our customers being at the forefront of
That is
innovation.
amazing.
So,
Really, really good.
yeah,
And like I said, I think it's that innovation. And I think, interestingly enough, if you want innovation, just go and talk to people in the industry. We talk to you, we talk to our franchisers, we talk to other people in the industry, and we're not short of ideas. People just need to actually stand up and listen to them. I think it's the main thing. If I went and talked to my franchise, and in fact, I was talking to one of the franchises about the car park idea, and he's like, I've been banging on about this for years. And it's to that point, listen to the people in the industry that know what they're talking about. You don't have to be an expert yourself. You just have to recognize a good idea when you see one and deliver on it. So if there's anyone that's listening, there you go.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I'm sure we could talk endlessly, and we should save that for another in-person discussion, hopefully next. But thank you very much, Andy. It's been really great talking to you.
Thank you for having me. And like I said, we'll meet up soon.
Cool. Cheers.